Have you ever been sitting in a meeting at work and all of a sudden go, oh my God, did mom remember to take her medicine? Or maybe standing in line at a grocery store, instead of thinking about what you're making for dinner, you're wondering, if dad made it safely to the doctor's appointment? Or maybe you've caught yourself checking your phone every few minutes, not because someone texts you, but because you're worried someone might. If you've done any of these things, I want you to know something. You're not distracted. You're carrying something most people can't see. And after helping my own parents, taking care, and talking with lots of other caregivers while building CareNest HQ, I think I finally figured out why caregiving feels so exhausting. And surprisingly, I don't think it's because of everything you have to do. If you're new here, my name is Richard, and I'm building CareNest HQ, a platform designed to help families coordinate care for aging loved ones. But this channel isn't about selling software. It's about sharing what I'm learning as a son, as a product building, and as someone trying to navigate the same challenges millions of families are facing. Every conversation I have with caregivers teaches me something. Sometimes it's a practical tip, sometimes it's a painful truth. But today's lessons completely changed how I think about caregiving. When most people think about caregiving, they picture physical work, driving someone to an appointment, making meals, helping around the house, picking up prescriptions. Those things absolutely take time and energy. But the more caregivers I talk to, the more I realize those aren't things that wear people down typically. It's everything happening in between those tasks. It's remembering that the prescription needs to be refilled next Tuesday. It's wondering if your parents actually ate lunch. It's trying to remember which specialist said, what 6 weeks ago. It's keeping your siblings updated. It's remembering insurance paperwork. It's remembering passwords. It's remembering who has copies of medical records. It's just, it's wondering whether you forgot something important. The work really never ends. And even when you're sitting on the couch, part of your brain is just, still thinking about caregiving. That invisible mental load follows you everywhere. And and I remember one day sitting down and starting, starting to work, and I opened my laptop. I had meetings, I had emails, I had product decisions, I had a long list of things I needed to accomplish. Before I could think of anything about that, I found myself mentally reviewing my parents' week. Did the appointment get scheduled? Did I hear back from the doctor? Did dad need any, another refill? How was mom feeling? I hadn't even started my work day, and my brain was already somewhere else. That was the moment I realized something had to change. Not because my parents suddenly needed constant care, but because part of my attention permanently belongs to someone else. I don't think enough people talk about that. Caregiving doesn't just take your time, it occupies your mind. And as I've been building CareNest HQ, I've had the opportunity to talk with, you know, thousands of caregivers from many different backgrounds, different ages, different families, different medical situations. And I, expect completely different stories. And instead, I keep hearing the same themes. One daughter told me she felt she was carrying her family entire memory. If she forgot something, nobody else remembered it either. Another caregiver described herself as human notebook. Appointments, phone numbers, medication changes. Everyone asked her because everyone assumed she'd know. Someone else told me they were physically exhausted, they were mentally exhausted. That distinction stuck with me. It different lives, different families, but the same feeling. I'm not doing it, not I'm doing too much, more like I'm trying to remember too much. When I first started building CareNest HQ, I thought I was solving an organizational problem. I thought families needed better calendars, but better reminders or better checklists. You know, the things, those things matter, but I realized, thinking too small. The real challenge isn't organization; it's context. Knowing dad has an appointment tomorrow isn't enough. why is he going? What happens at at the last visit? What questions should we ask? What medication changed? Who's taking him? Where are the notes afterwards? Context what turns information into confidence. And without it, every appointment feels like starting over again. The realization completely changed how we think about building the product. So one thing that really important to me, I don't believe technology replaces caregivers. No way. And it shouldn't. No app replaces sitting next to your mom. No AI replaces holding your dad's hand. Technology can't love people. People do that, and but I do think technology can reduce unnecessary mental burden. It can help organize information, help families stay on the same page, help reduce the feeling that everything depends on one person's memory. If it gives a caregiver even a little more breathing room, that's meaningful. Because caregivers deserve moments where they can simply be a son or a daughter instead of constantly feeling like a family coordinator. If there's one thing I hope you take away from today's video is this. If caring for someone you love feels overwhelming, that doesn't mean you're failing. It probably means you're carrying far more responsibility than anyone else realizes. The heaviest part of caregiving isn't always, what you're doing. Sometimes it's everything you've trying to remember. As I continue building CareNestHQ, I'm going to keep sharing what I'm learning from real caregivers, from my own family's journey, and from mistakes that we've made along the way. Because every conversation makes a product better. And honestly, every conversation makes me a better son. And I love to hear from you. What's one thing that occupies your mind every single day as a caregiver? Leave it in the comments below, and I read every one of them. Many of those conversations shape what we build next. Thank you for spending a few minutes with me today, and take care of yourself, take care of the people you love, and don't forget to call your parents.